Imagine waking one morning to a quiet, terrible suspicion that the life you have been living was never truly yours, that your decisions, your beliefs, even the desires that pull you out of bed each day did not rise from the deepest part of you. They were placed there by expectation, by conditioning, by forces you never saw and never agreed to. So let me ask you something and answer it honestly. How much of who you are is genuinely you, and how much is a mask carefully assembled to satisfy the world around you? How often do you feel you are merely playing a role, performing a script written by your society, by your upbringing, by the small fears that whisper at the back of your mind? I spent my life studying this question, and I reached one conclusion that I want to give you before anything else. Your real life does not begin at birth. It begins on the day you find yourself, and most people die without ever reaching that day. Stay with me, because by the end you will understand why so few ever find themselves, and how you can be one of the rare ones who does. The final truth I leave you with is the most powerful of all. It can change not only how you see yourself, but how you meet the entire world. My name is Carl Jung. I spent my years past the edges of the familiar map of the mind, out into the vast, unknown country of the unconscious. And unlike most of the men of my field, I never believed that health meant fitting neatly into the demands of society. I believed the opposite, that real growth is a journey toward becoming your most authentic self. I called it individuation. Here is the hard truth. Most people never take that journey. They live their whole lives inside a version of themselves that was built by outside hands. They obey expectations they never once questioned. They chase approval, success, the warmth of belonging, certain that happiness is waiting on the far side of being accepted. And yet, somewhere beneath all of it, there is an unrest, a faint, persistent sense that something is missing. That feeling is not your enemy. It may be the truest thing about you. Real life begins when you stop running from yourself. But before I can show you what it means to find yourself, I have to show you what stops nearly everyone from doing it. From your very first breath, you were shaped. You were handed a name, an identity, a set of roles to fill. You were taught, gently and constantly, what was acceptable and what was not, what earned you love and what earned you punishment. The process was so quiet, so gradual, that you never thought to question it. You adapted, you conformed, and piece by piece you learned to bury the parts of yourself that did not fit. Think back to your childhood. Were there moments when you showed exactly who you were, only to be met with a frown? Perhaps you were told to be realistic, to stop being so sensitive, that certain feelings, certain longings were simply not appropriate. So you folded those parts of yourself away, tucked them somewhere no one would look. And in doing so, you built a mask. I called that mask the persona. The persona is the face you show the world. It is useful, it lets you move among other people, hold relationships together, earn acceptance. But here is the danger, and almost no one escapes it. The longer you wear the mask, the more you forget that it is a mask. You begin to believe that you are the persona, and you lose all contact with the deeper thing breathing beneath it. And then there is the other half of you, the half you show to no one. If the persona is what you display, this is what you conceal. I called it the shadow. The shadow holds everything you have rejected in yourself, your fears, your forbidden desires, your weaknesses, and, strangely, some of your greatest hidden strengths, locked away because they were never once allowed to breathe. Now understand this carefully because it changes everything. The shadow does not vanish simply because you refuse to look at it. It does not leave. It goes underground and rules you from there, steering your thoughts, your reactions, your behavior, while you believe you are choosing freely. And most often it reveals itself through what I called projection. Have you ever despised someone intensely and not quite known why? Have you ever felt a reaction rise in you far stronger than the moment deserved at some quality in another person? Listen closely. When a trait in someone else disturbs you that violently, it is very often because that same trait lives in you, hidden in your own shadow, the very thing you are most afraid to find in yourself. But now I will tell you the secret that almost everyone misses. Inside that shadow lies the key to finding yourself. The parts of you that you buried and despised are not your enemies. They are the missing pieces of your wholeness. My discovery was this. Growth is not about destroying the shadow. It is about integrating it, about descending into your own depths and facing what you have denied for so long. Because the moment you do, you unlock something most people never touch. Real power, real authenticity, real freedom. This is where the true journey begins. Are you ready to face who you actually are? Most people walk through their entire lives convinced they already know. They point to their name, their work, their culture, their history. But what if I told you that the self you take yourself to be is only the surface? A thin construct floating on top of something far deeper and far larger. Within you lies a hidden world, forgotten memories, buried emotions, desires you have never admitted, and a potential you have never touched. And the way to find yourself is not to build some new and better identity. It is to uncover what has been waiting inside you all along. Be honest with yourself for a moment. Have you ever felt a deep, unexplainable ache for something more? A sense that a greater version of you is standing just out of view, waiting. That is not your imagination. That is the voice of your unconscious, calling you toward the person you were meant to become. But before any of these parts can be integrated, they must first be faced. And this is exactly where almost everyone stops. Why? Because facing yourself is deeply uncomfortable. It means looking at the parts of your character you have ignored for years. It means questioning beliefs you have held your whole life and confronting the fears you have spent enormous energy avoiding. Consider how hard you work to avoid silence. The constant reaching for your work, your screens, your entertainment, anything that keeps you from sitting alone with your own thoughts. That noise is no accident. It is a defense. A way to keep the deeper questions from rising to the surface. But no amount of distraction makes those hidden parts disappear. They simply find other ways to speak. Through anxiety, through self-sabotage, through relationships that never quite satisfy, through that low, persistent feeling of being lost. Your unconscious is always speaking to you. You have only learned not to listen. Let me give you one example, simple but powerful. The fear of rejection. So many people move through life terrified of being judged or abandoned. They chase approval. They avoid every conflict. They swallow their real thoughts to keep the peace. But where does that fear truly come from? Is it really about what others think? Or does it reach back to something older? A wound from childhood, a moment when you felt unseen, unwanted, not enough. I would tell you that this fear is not merely an emotion, it is a piece of your shadow that has never been acknowledged. And until you bring it into the light, it will go on controlling your choices from behind the curtain for the rest of your life. But here is the remarkable thing. The instant you finally turn and face these hidden parts of yourself, they begin to lose their grip on you. Imagine it. To live without the constant fear of judgment, to speak your truth without flinching, to make your decisions not from what others expect, but from what rings true in the deepest part of you. That is the power of individuation. It was never about becoming someone new. It is about becoming more completely who you already are. So how do you begin? How do you reach the hidden forces shaping your life? I found that the unconscious speaks most clearly through symbols, through dreams, through honest reflection. I treated dreams as messages from the deeper self, carrying truths the waking mind refuses to admit. I pressed people toward creative expression too, art, writing, music, any act that lets the buried self come forward and be seen. But the most important step of all is simpler than any of that: awareness. The very moment you begin to question your own thoughts, your reactions, your oldest beliefs, you have already taken the first step toward transformation. The moment you stop fleeing discomfort and instead turn toward it with curiosity, you begin to take yourself back. Because here is a truth I want you to sit with. Most people live their entire lives as strangers to themselves. They follow the paths laid out for them and never once realize they were always free to choose another. You do not have to be one of them. If what I am telling you is reaching something inside you, subscribe to this channel. What comes next goes deeper than anything yet. Now, a question. Why do you feel pulled towards certain desires, certain fears? Why do you repeat the same mistakes, fall into the same patterns, even when you swear that you will not? My answer unsettled the world of my time. I came to believe that inside every human being lie universal patterns, ancient blueprints of the psyche that shape our thoughts and feelings in ways we barely understand. I called them archetypes, and I believe they are stored in a layer of the mind shared by all of humanity, inherited across the whole of human history, the collective unconscious. You can see these patterns in the stories we have told since the beginning: the hero on his journey, the wise old mentor, the dark villain, the innocent child. These figures appear in every myth, every religion, every literature, and in your dreams at night. They are not mere fiction. They are forces living inside all of us. Take the hero. That is the part of you that hungers for purpose, that feels called toward something greater, that wants to overcome and grow and rise into a stronger version of yourself. But the hero never walks alone. He is always shadowed. And in the old stories, the hero must face that shadow, the monster, the enemy, the great trial, before he can become who he was meant to be. Now bring that into your own life. Have you ever stood at the edge of a change you knew you needed and felt something inside you pull back? A chance to step into a greater version of yourself, blocked by fear, by doubt, by self-sabotage. That is the hero and the shadow fighting inside you. And the mistake almost everyone makes is to try to crush the shadow rather than understand it. Say you struggle with self-doubt. Instead of burying it, I would have you turn and question it. Where did you come from? Are you even mine? Or were you planted in me by old experiences and the voices of others? What are you trying to teach me? Because hidden inside that very doubt, there may be a strength, humility, depth, the ability to see a thing from many sides at once. When you stop treating your struggles as weaknesses and start hearing them as messages, everything changes. There are other forces in you too. One of the most powerful I called the anima and the animus. Within every man lives a hidden feminine side, the anima. Within every woman, a hidden masculine side, the animus. I do not mean this in any physical sense. I mean a balance of energies within the soul. The anima carries intuition, feeling, creativity, the deep connection to the unconscious. The animus carries logic, structure, discipline, the will to assert. When these two live in balance inside a person, they feel whole. When they fall out of balance, conflict begins. A man who rejects his anima may find that he cannot feel, cannot show what is tender in him, because he has learned to call vulnerability a weakness. A woman who rejects her animus may struggle to stand her ground, to take command of her own life. But when these energies are welcomed instead of buried, they become a source of enormous strength. And this brings us to one of the most important truths I ever uncovered. To find yourself, you must embrace all of yourself, the light and the dark, the masculine and the feminine, the known and the unknown. Individuation was never about becoming something other than what you are. It is about becoming whole. But there is one last piece, and it is the deepest of all. Because the greatest obstacle to finding yourself is not fear or doubt or the conditioning of the world. It is something woven into the very way you perceive reality itself. It is the illusion of a fixed self. Most people assume their identity is solid, a single, unchanging I, traveling through time, defined by memory and experience. But I, along with many philosophers and mystics before me, understood something far more radical. The self is not a stone. It is fluid, ever-changing, and far greater than you have been led to believe. What if the version of you that you cling to right now is only a fragment of something much larger? Not the small, frightened self that clutches at labels and fears, but the true self, the whole of who you are, beneath every illusion of identity. This realization frees and frightens at once, because it means that everything you have believed yourself to be, all your fears, all your limits, all the stories you repeat about yourself, is not the whole truth. It is a construct, a temporary frame your mind built and then mistook for the building. You carry within you the depth of the unconscious and the gathered experience of countless generations who came before you. You were never as small as you thought. So why do you feel so limited? Why the suffering, the doubt, the fear? The answer lies in the ego. And the ego is not your enemy. It is simply the part of the mind that creates the sense of separation. It is the voice that says, "This is who I am, and this is who I am not." It builds the walls. It draws the borders. It keeps you chained to the familiar. The ego has its uses, but it is also the single greatest barrier to discovering yourself. Because in truth, you were never meant to be locked inside one rigid identity. You are a being in constant becoming. And the moment you loosen your grip on who you think you are, you open a door to possibilities you cannot yet imagine. How do you walk through that door? I will leave you with the path, and it will ask for your courage. First, embrace the unknown. People fear it because it offers no certainty. But the unknown is the only place where growth happens. When you stop bracing against the mysteries inside you and lean toward them with curiosity instead, you begin to see yourself and the world through new eyes. Second, let go of your labels. You are not only your name, not only your work, your past, your personality. You are something that refuses to be fully defined. Release the rigid identities, and you make room for something greater to rise. Third, listen to the unconscious. Your dreams, your instincts, your deepest intuitions are not noise. They are messages from the self, guiding you toward wholeness. The more you attend to them, the more you will begin to notice the patterns and the strange, meaningful coincidences that point you toward your true path. And finally, surrender to the process. Finding yourself is not a destination you reach and then forget. It is a journey without end, an unfolding of deeper and deeper layers of what is true. And here is the final revelation I promised you, the one that changes everything. You were never truly lost. You have been here the whole time. The self you have spent your life searching for has been waiting inside you from the very beginning, asking only to be remembered. So the choice is now yours, and it is the only choice that has ever mattered. Will you go on living as a fragment of who you are, bound by old fear and borrowed illusion? Or will you step forward into the unknown and become the vast, unfinished being you were always meant to be? Because your life does not truly begin until you find yourself. And now, at last, you know the way. If you are ready to begin, write 3 words below. I am ready. Let me see who is prepared to come home to themselves. And stay for the next video. The journey only deepens from here.